In the 2019 through 20 NBA season, one of the league's best stories was the rise of Kendrick Nunn, an undrafted prospect that spent 5 long years in college after taking a year off to transfer to a new school after playing 3 years at Illinois. Nunn spent some time in the G League with the Santa Cruz Warriors before the Miami Heat came knocking, offering the rookie a spot on their roster. And Kendrick wasted no time establishing himself as a top-tier point guard for the team, averaging 15 points and 30 minutes a game on a very good Heat team, forcing the franchise to make a crucial midseason decision to move Goran Dragic, one of their best players, to the bench to not hinder the development of the rookie, who had been appearing to be emerging as a star. When it came time to vote for the Rookie of the Year award, Nunn placed second, beating out guys like Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett, two names we've known and been hyped about for years. And yet, the guy who made a name for himself just a few months back beat them, alongside 59 of the 60 rookies drafted ahead of him in 2019. But Nunn left the NBA's bubble in Disney World for personal reasons, just as the team approached the playoffs, forcing him to miss 3 regular season games while he quarantined. The Heat played him 32 minutes in his return to the court, in a game that would mark the last until the playoffs. However, when the playoffs arrived, Nunn began to rack up a slew of DNPs, and people began to speculate as to why. Even TNT had released a report saying that Nunn had returned to the bubble out of shape, which both he and the Heat organization refuted. In response to the rumors, Nunn said, quote, "My game speed is always up-tempo and ready to play. My conditioning level is fine. I'm definitely ready," unquote. The real reason mostly has to do with this guy, Goran Dragic, the man who Nunn had originally replaced in the starting lineup. Due to Nunn's departure from the team, Miami decided to experiment with starting Dragic, and had voiced a plan to slowly integrate Nunn back into his usual starting role as he made up for his missed time in practice. However, Dragic put a halt to these plans quickly when he began to play out of his mind, averaging 23 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, and 3 made threes a game on 41% shooting in 34 plus minutes a night in Miami's series against Indiana. It made sense to keep the hot hand in as much as possible, and so they did. In the 4-game series, Nunn racked up 3 DNPs, making his first career playoff appearance in Game 4 in a limited role in which he only saw 14 minutes of playing time. In that time, he would score 7 points, a number that at this point has been his playoff career high, despite his regular season scoring averages being over twice that amount. As the Heat found more and more success in the playoffs with the rotation they had originally planned on progressively changing so that Nunn would have a bigger role, they made the decision to stick with their guns and continue to have Dragic play big minutes. It's been a good move for the team as a whole, but Kendrick has appeared to get the short end of the stick. You can almost feel his disappointment when he's been approached by interviewers, saying this during one of his encounters, quote, "I feel great. We've had a lot of time off, so I'm stacking positive days on top of each other during this stretch, so I feel great now. I'm in a great rhythm and I'm ready to play," unquote. As much as the sudden benching of Nunn may appear to be just a bump in the road for a guy who has loads of potential, I see it as a move that is a bit more revealing. Nunn started the season off with a bang, dropping 22.4 points a game in his first 5 games. It was the most points ever scored in the first 5 games of any undrafted player ever, and also the most scored period in a rookie's first 5 games since Kevin Durant. The next 34 games, Nunn averaged just under 15 a night. Then, to close out the season, that number reduced down to 12 points in his last 9 games. Although the decline is steady, it is present nevertheless, and should alarm Heat fans about the true potential of this man. To start off the season, he appeared to be an undrafted prodigy that was a top-tier guard in the league, but by the end of it, turned into a below-average starter that failed to do pretty much the only real thing he was good at: score. That's another huge issue with Nunn. He doesn't do much outside of score. Although he played point guard for a majority of the season, he only racked up averages of 3 assists a game on a good team with very solid scoring options. He also shoots below league average from 3, so if Miami wanted to try to play him at shooting guard, he would essentially be failing at fulfilling the primary duties of a shooting guard. That being said, he was a good shooter in college, and he definitely isn't shy when it comes to shooting threes, so there's a chance that he can adjust to the NBA 3 sometime soon. soon and get more reliable from behind the arc. Regardless though, I don't know if Nunn will get much better than he is now. I see his career playing out similar to the likes of Tyreek Evans or Jeremy Lin. Obviously he doesn't play all that similarly to these guys, but the early peak of these players is what I see best resembling the career trajectory of Nunn. I also just don't want to be too nice to a guy that's pled guilty to battery charges, and although that doesn't influence my opinion on him from a basketball standpoint, I thought it was worth mentioning, and also it just makes him really hard to root for. Anyways, the big general point I'm trying to get at here with this video, if I can just wrap things up here, it's this fact that there's a lot of advantages to being a guy who isn't highly scouted, who isn't a high prospect from day one, who doesn't get a lot of media attention. Now, obviously there's a ton of disadvantages to this as well, mainly the fact that, well, people aren't scouting you for a reason, probably because you're not good enough, not talented enough, and probably not tall enough either. Every once in a while, we do see a guy like Kendrick Nunn slip through these cracks, and the scouts just miss. They miss a guy who is NBA ready and really good at what he does. And when that happens, when this guy gets some playing time and inevitably bursts out onto the scene, it's very misleading. These 22 points a game he's averaging in his first handful of games is not created equally to a guy who's been putting up 22 a game for years, and we know he can do it, and people know his name, he has an established game, and people still can't stop him. So when we see someone like Kendrick Nunn do this originally, well, we gotta think about why. Sure, we can credit a lot to Kendrick Nunn and his great play, but a lot of it also has to go to the fact that these teams had no idea who Kendrick Nunn was. The fact that Kendrick Nunn wasn't a threat, he wasn't on the scouting report, they hadn't looked at tapes of Kendrick Nunn, they hadn't studied film, they didn't know his game, they hadn't studied his go-to moves, and they didn't know how to stop him because they didn't think they would need to. So when they figure out that, okay, we do need to know how to stop him, they start doing all those things. They start looking at tapes, analyzing his game, studying the go-to moves, his tendencies, and all of a sudden we see that scoring number slowly dip. And, you know, most of the NBA world, they're not diehard Heat fans. They don't watch every Heat game. So, you know, we might just see some Kendrick Nunn highlights and think, okay, this guy is legit. And we don't notice this slow and steady decline in production. And then all of a sudden, by the end of the regular season, this dude and his scoring average has dropped by 10 points. It's dropped by 10 points. In the beginning of the season, he was averaging 22 points a game. And in the last, 9 games of the season, he averaged 12. And then in between, he averaged 15. So this is a notable decline that wasn't rapid, it wasn't anything sudden, but it's going to appear sudden when come next year, he's not as great as he was this year. We see it all the time, these guys that burst out onto the scene just because people really didn't know who they were and didn't expect them to really do this. Jeremy Lin is obviously the go-to example. Langston Galloway. Many people didn't watch those Knicks teams. I was a diehard Knicks fan, so I did. Still am, unfortunately. Lang's sanity was real, and I'm not joking. Lang's sanity was real and legit. You know, there's countless examples of this throughout history. People just don't know what to expect with these players, and then once they do get an idea and a feel of what to expect, well, the show is over, the hype is out. You know, I think Nunn can sustain a nice career. His career can play out like a better Jeremy Lin. Obviously they don't really play like crazy similarly, but like just success wise, not really this prodigy talent that many people are really looking forward to seeing in the future. However, Nunn has found himself in the perfect system. Miami is known for being a hardcore, no nonsense type team that's great for player development, and the rookie has seemed to be up for that challenge. He definitely still has a lot of potential, but I don't see his career ever truly taking off or the guy ever becoming an all-star caliber talent, nor does his playoff benching seem to be all that out of the blue when you take into account his progressive decline and Dragic's improved play. And with that, we're going to conclude today's video. Thank you all for watching. Like, subscribe, leave a comment if you enjoyed this video. Any support to the channel is appreciated. And with that, I am out.